Okay, welcome back to the Agile Matrix Podcast, where we decode the secrets to success in the ever-evolving world of Agile. I'm your host, ever excited Tammy, and today we have a true Agile luminary in our midst. So get ready to be inspired as we embark on a journey into the realm of Agile leadership with none other than Jim Sammons. Now, Jim isn't just an Agile consultant, coach, and a professional Scrum Trainer with Scrum.org. He's a problem solver extraordinaire, dedicated to igniting the flames of excellence within Agile teams worldwide. So join us as we delve deep into the art of Agile leadership and explore Jim's unique approach to inspiring teams to reach new heights of excellence. From unlocking the potential of individuals to fostering a culture of collaboration and innovation, Jim's insights are sure to leave you feeling energized and empowered to lead with confidence. So like I always say, grab your notepads, grab your favorite beverage, and prepare to embark on a transformative journey with none other than the great, the awesome Jim Sammons on the Agile Matrix Podcast. So Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on. Happy to be here.
Welcome. I hope you like that intro.
Oh my God. I don't know tell me where to send the check. That's such an amazing intro.
I'll direct message you that.
Yeah. I'll Venmo it to you any second now.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much. So Jim, I know you. I know you're an awesome professional Scrum Trainer, an awesome Agile coach. Can you introduce yourself to our audience just to let them know who you are from your perspective?
Yeah. My name's Jim Sammons. I am residing in the United States. I'm in the state of Ohio. I live in the country with animals, my spouse, dogs, cats, everything else all around. And then during the day and unfortunately, some evenings and weekends, I'm helping clients around the world become more agile. And I'm still learning what that means every day. And I love what I do. My grandmothers have said that I found the perfect job because all of my assessments as a child said how smart I was and how this I was and how that, but I talked too much. And they're like, you found a way to get paid to talk.
Okay.
But words are cheap, so actions are better. But I love what I do, and I'm just excited to talk to you about Agile leadership.
No, fantastic. Thank you for that. I remember my younger brother was called a chatterbox. His junior school report card. Can you imagine that? So,
yep, okay. I can relate.
Yeah, so questions. I have a couple of questions here. So question one, I say, as a leader in the Agile world, what do you believe are the key characteristics of an effective Agile leader? And how do these traits inspire teams to strive for excellence?
Yeah, when you sent me this idea to begin thinking about it, I just grabbed a notebook and some Sharpies and started jotting notes down. So I'm going to probably throw a few things at you. And if anything sparks your interest or a story, I'd love to hear it. But one of the things that I think separates an Agile leader from, let's say, a non-Agile leader, maybe somebody who wants to just improve how they're leading people towards business agility, towards some new outcome. One of the things is listening to everyone around you at all levels of the organization. And I found that a lot of leaders, they are very busy. Their calendars look like a game of Tetris, and they tend to be talking and collaborating and venting to the same 3 or 4 people all the time. And they might talk to their direct reports, and they might talk to their peers, and maybe they talk to their leadership a little bit. I think one element of Agile leadership is understanding that the people closest to the work are where the real solutions come from. They're where the real innovation can come from. They're where the real feedback can come from. So I think an Agile leader needs to kind of get out of that echo chamber a little bit. And there's many things that I would associate with Agile leadership, but another one is, I think an Agile leader is creating what I call an intrapreneur. And there's a number of ways to do that. But what I mean by an intrapreneur is inside your team, your product, your company, your organization, helping people act like entrepreneurs. And that might sound like autonomy. It might sound like empowerment. It might sound like taking a value-driven approach, a data-driven approach to something. But what I have found to be a trait of entrepreneurs is it just comes very natural for them to do a lot of different things. Because when you're building something and you're not entrepreneur, and I was asking one of my Dutch clients the other day is if the idea of bootstrapping translated to them. And they're like, yeah, not directly, but they knew what I meant. So entrepreneurs have to figure out how to get stuff done without hundreds of or thousands of people, without millions of dollars in the bank. And that creates muscles of, innovation, being creative, building networks, all types of things. So those are a couple things that immediately came to mind when you asked about agile leadership.
Wow, that's so true. I just remembered when you're talking that I watched a video and the AI guy at Tesla before, is he the Polish guy? I've forgotten his name now. He was talking about how Elon works. And he said something about, give an example. There is a problem. If something's meant to happen at a certain time, it doesn't happen, and Elon gets to know about it. Elon does effectively the 5 whys in his own way, which is who is meant to do this, or is that person, who is that person? That person meant to do this, that person meant to do that. Then he gets to the last person, says, give me a phone, call the person, let's solve that now. Very straightforward, like you said, like an entrepreneur. He's not thinking, because I think what I'm hearing is a lot of leaders in organizations say, like you said, echo chamber, it's just the processing that is going. But an entrepreneur is thinking about an outcome that must come out. So what's the quickest way between what we want to do and how we do it? And it's just, building systems and people to ensure that they can get that out the door as quickly as possible. And that's what he said about Elon, that, a lot of small, hyper excellent teams, small teams to deliver. And there's always, and what the guy actually says that Elon is always trying to force the teams to be smaller and to be very effective, and he says something about very clear problem solving skills, that it is a problem, we have to solve it to get out, finish everything we're doing and all that.
Well, one of the other things I wrote down, coincidentally, is that I don't think this is solely a trait of agile leaders, but let's say modern or innovative leaders, is I find that the best ones, they love problems instead of solutions. And if you think about Copilot from Microsoft, or SharePoint, or some new mobile app, or a new tangible good, like a new tool or thing like that, those are solutions to problems. And we're all overwhelmed by things to buy, things to learn, things to implement, things to do, whatever. But I find that agile leaders fall in love with the problem, and they want to solve things differently, and they want to solve customer needs. They want to create something that the world needs. And that's so much better, in my opinion. It's how I would prefer to spend my week, rather than just taking someone else's solution to a problem and either making it slightly better or just implementing it. Like, by the time things get around to implementation, I'm usually bored. Like, I don't want to spend 2 years implementing some global software package or some new tool somewhere. I want to think about what problem are we trying to solve, and what type of tool do we need to solve it? And when we do begin to understand that problem, what's that going to create? And talking to the people and saying, hey, we solved a little part of your problem. What do you think? That's what I love doing. And that's where complexity lies. That's where innovation lies. Innovation doesn't lie in, hey, this thing that we've all agreed on, go roll it out 200 more times around the globe. That's not complex anymore. It's not easy, but it's not in that novel. It's not in that complex.
It's more not complicated. It's just,
Exactly.
Okay. That's nice. So another question. So in your experience, right, what would you say leaders in general, or even agile leaders, what would you say their challenge is when it comes to inspiring teams to excel?
Inspiring anybody to do anything is super difficult. And I'll just speak from my opinion about what inspires me, because it's different for everybody. Like, I don't want to claim to know what inspires other people, but what inspires me is something that speaks to my logical brain.
Okay.
Like, if you do this, then this, and something that speaks to my, my personal code, whether that's morals, ethics, my worldview, things that I find interesting. But then what I think really inspires people is when you give them a constraint. Because if you think about time boxes, budgets, VC funding, all of those are forms of constraints. There would be far less shows on TV if it was just a chef trying to cook any dish they wanted with any ingredient at any cost time that took as much time as they wanted. But no, all those shows that we like, The Great British Bake Off, Survivor, the list goes on and on. They're a constraint. Do this in this weird way. Make the best dish you can in an hour. Make the best dish you can in 4 hours, but with only these 5 ingredients. And we find that engaging. We find that at least interesting and enjoyable. But I think it also is where a lot of creativity comes from. Because it's, at least for me, if I walk into a bookstore, it's very difficult for me to know, like, which of these thousands of books should I do. But if you give me a constraint, like, maybe when I went to the bookstore last, I was looking for a very specific book on not a title, but a type of book on a certain topic. And it was very easy for me then. And I think that we are all overwhelmed by choices and distractions, and creating constraints can create innovation, and it can create it more likely that we're going to come up with a novel solution. And what I mean by novel is something that is unique. It could be the first time anyone's thought of it, but it's just not common. It's maybe not something you go to a Tesco and buy for $2.99. It's something a little more unique than that. It's something that has a niche purpose. What do you think about this idea of constraints? Do you find them to be like weighty constraints? Because constraints can weigh you down, or do you find them to be a positive?
Interestingly, actually, so the idea of time boxing, in my documentation, in my text, in my talk, I really rebrand it as positive time pressure. I found out that when you, and like what you said, I found that when you give people something to do, they can, like when you run a retrospective, for example, or planning session, and you want to get people to put ideas down, if you give them an infinite time box, they may eventually get there. But when you put that positive time pressure, suddenly people are running through their thoughts in their minds to get to an outcome, because the time will finish. And that's what I found out. It's like when you go to the gym, for example, there's something you want to do. And I was reading something somewhere. Let me just bring this in. They mentioned that stress is a killer. But then in their studies, they found out that there were kinds of stress. There were some kinds of stress that actually promoted health. And the guy mentioned going to the gym, going for that run, actually doing work for an outcome, even though it was stressful. They found out that something in the biology, once you have the outcome, there's like a feedback thing that goes, and the body goes into this like, whoa, really good thing. So they found that positive stress was good. Interesting. Right. So same thing with the positive time pressure. So yeah, like I agree with you. Putting that constraint, actually, it can, when done right, can force a lot of innovation to come up.
Right. And yeah, that stress curve you're talking about, there's a balance between when that stress is a benefit and when we tip over that stress peak, when it becomes a negative. And, there's a common saying that muscles don't grow when they're comfortable. They grow when they're stressed and stretched and tear. And I think that's how constraints can be used as a good thing. It's not what can you get done for €1 million in 2 years. It's what can you get done in a month? What can you get done for €100,000? What can you get done by next Thursday? And to me, those might initially create stress in people, like, oh, we can never get it done in 2 weeks. We can never get it done for that amount of money, or we can never get it done with X constraint. But then that can actually create motivation and inspire people to try something new, because what they're doing is they're falling into the trap of normally how we work. That is not enough money. It's not enough time. But if you and I are there, it's normally because somebody has said, we want to work differently, or we want something we're not getting.
Yeah.
And that's very freeing for people. But when I find myself, whether it's on purpose or accidentally, put in the position of just help the people do what they're always doing the way they've always done it, and just get us a little bit more, that's terrible for me. It's terrible for them. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. And it doesn't mean we need to change for the sake of change.
Yeah.
But I don't think actual innovation, business agility, any of these things that we're talking about come from just do what we've always done the way we've always done it, and just make it slightly better or faster or cheaper or whatever. I'm not the right person for that type of environment. Yep.
I get you. Because when you look at it in the end, I used to tell them where we met that, you look at Agile as a tool to achieve something. It can't be the goal in the end, because it's to do something. You're training to do something. So you're making the teams quicker, better, more efficient, more effective, more reliable for a certain purpose.
Yeah.
So another question. So in your experience, but you're about to say something. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to just make this real for the audience a little bit. So as I was thinking about it, one of the other things that I think inspires people is getting them closer to the people consuming their work. And this, I've had amazing success with this over my career. And it can be as simple as, maybe you are doing a RPA, you're doing some, process automation work.
Yeah.
Why are you doing it? Well, to save X amount of hours every month or every quarter in this area. Okay. What are we doing? We're automating this, that, and this other process. Okay. For who? And then when they tell me, I'm like, can we go talk to them? Can we go observe them? And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. But normally that does two things. One is it lets the people who are about to solve a problem or become creative to talk to the people that we are expecting to consume that work and hear things firsthand. Because one of the other things that I think separates an agile leader from maybe a less agile leader is pictures over words. Because it's very hard to get inspired by a 4-page design document in Microsoft Word.
True.
But if we can look at pictures, if we can watch a recording of somebody doing something, if we can sketch something out on a whiteboard or on FigJam or on a mural or something, I have just found that if a picture tells 1,000 words, well, how many words does a video tell then? Or a direct conversation or some other more modern technique other than go read these 40 requirements in some tool and then use those to inspire yourself. So, but the other thing is when we can bring a team or a group of people to the people that are going to consume their work, I have found that they always find new problems to solve.
Yeah.
They can test some assumptions and they can clarify any direction or constraints that they've already been given.
Yes.
And it doesn't, like a real example from my history is we had a mobile app in a city and all we had to do to get feedback from real customers was go down to the Chipotle in the corner or go down to the Costa coffee shop in London and say, because almost everybody had our app on their phone and we could say, hey, we're a team that's working on this. Can we buy your coffee? Can we buy your burrito and ask you a few questions? Now it took a little bit of wrangling to get that done. And some people had to be assured that we weren't going to say anything wrong. We weren't going to show anything private or whatever, but that we overcame those hurdles in a few days. and could then go down and get real live feedback from real live people. So I think that's just another, it's kind of associated with both of your questions. Agile leadership will hopefully build the foundation for that. And then I find that very inspiring when we connect people doing the work, solving problems, to the people that we expect or hope will benefit from those.
You remind me of a particular contract I was on that when we got there, the engineering, basically they had a system that they had built, and over the years they've plugged in different things into the system, but it was now beginning to run slow. So my team was a team that were going into the code to investigate, and they will find lines of code that were outputting to no one. So, and also we're also trying to build stuff. So the engineering manager really told the teams, build A, B, C, D, E. And before I got there, their sprint review was them sitting in the room together and showing the lines of code. That was it. So when I got there, I was like, no, someone is going to consume this. Bring the person to the room. And at first, there was some resistance, but I was like, what do you lose? So we brought one person in, the main person. So it was a system that the claims office also used. So one of the claims leads came in and she was like, oh yeah, thanks for bringing me in and all that. So we showed her the purpose of the sprint review. This is what we're planning to do, blah, blah, blah. Then we showed her the stuff and she was like, oh, this is really good. We don't ever use these systems. We stopped using them years ago. But this is you're doing, keep doing this. But then the interesting thing is, we then said to her, okay, so for the next sprint, you want to do this. And she was like, why? Oh, we're told that you guys, so no, we've decommissioned that system years ago. Oh, so what do you need? And she was like, yeah, that's what and interesting, she said that she's been calling for, for her to be invited into some meetings with the engineers to tell them what their pain points were. But she kept on getting the pushback that we know. And she was like, yeah, this proves that you guys don't know with your best intentions and you need us to be in this meeting. So then the next sprint review, she came with 4 of her staff and they were like, yeah, thanks for this, thanks for that. We don't need that. And it became more precise.
Yeah. In my Chipotle example, which is a real story, by the way, for the cost of about 10 burritos, we were able to find items on our backlog that were going to take us months to get done that people didn't care about. And then we were able to hear about other things that were bothering them or that they wish our app could do that we could have done that would have made such a more impact, a better impact faster. And that's great. The other thing that has happened is I remember a story 2013, 2014. I was working with a team and they had a product in the market. Customers were consuming it, buying it every day, using it every day. And our product owner said, and product management, even the vice president of product at the company said, okay, we're making good money on this, but now we need to solve some of our support burden. Like the help desk and our support people are buried under too much stuff about your product. And we had a whole bunch of items that we were given from that organization, from marketing and from product to go do. And I said, where did these come from? And they said, well, that's what we think needs done. And what I realized, and it wasn't just me that realized, it was me and a few others on my team, is no one on our team had ever talked to anybody from the support organization. Wow. So we did 2 things. Is we had a rotation where one of our engineers, one of our software developers, went through a weekly rotation onto the support desk and listened side by side on a Y splitter cable with a real live support engineer to calls as they were going on. And a support engineer came onto our team for a number of sprints to tell us what was actually happening in the field and to see work and to see how it was not very easy sometimes to fix some of these things. Because so we were building these bridges with another group of people who were on the same floor as us, but were, a few hundred yards away that we weren't collaborating with. It cost us nothing. And it led to empathy across both ways. It led to more solutions. It led to more novel solutions. It led to more awareness about what was actually happening instead of what somebody put in some spreadsheet that we saw in the future, maybe delayed by a month or more. So I only tell stories like that to demystify that this doesn't mean you gotta put a bunch of people on an airplane and fly them around the world and meet with 100 people and come back and do this fancy boardroom level presentation. There are some very easy bootstrapping ways to begin to get the team closer to the people consuming their work.
Yeah, very, very, very true. And you know, in my work working with Scrum Masters, I usually tell them, because some Scrum Masters think so there's protect the team, there's also help, you know, or like we're beginning to teach them now, which is to coach the teams to sort out their impediments. Some Scrum Masters assume that they go between the developers stay on one side, the business they're working with stay on one side, and they're the go-between. And I always tell them, no, get out of the way. Let your developers speak to the people they're working for in an open, free conversation. They should to you know, be typing lines of code and go, oh, it must be blue or red. Let me go over to John and ask John straight away. No need for an email, no need for this massive requirement document and a presentation meeting. Just go on. We're working together. I mean, one of the Agile principles talks about the business and the developers working together daily.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
and I think
that.
I think this idea of protection is far overemphasized. In fact, Scrum itself doesn't talk at all about protecting. It's not a ability for the Scrum Master whatsoever. But I agree that providing focus and helping the team, you know, being able to measure their progress towards goals and all those things could sound like protection again a little bit, or helping them avoid distractions. But I find far too many people, even Scrum aside, just in the world of work, overprotect other people. And they do it for some very good reasons. But what it tends to do is to stifle communication, stifle collaboration, stifle innovation. And it allows people to kind of stay in their little box and treat what they're doing like, just tell me what I need to do, leave me alone to do it, and then I'll give it to you at the end. And that's just not what we want most of the time. Sometimes that's what we need. Sometimes that's what I need. I need to be given some stuff to do, left alone for a time to produce it, and then I can give it to you and show it to you. We can sit down and talk about it. But generally, if we are working in the complex domain, we need feedback. We can't just put our heads down and put blinders on. And this idea, like I had a leader the other day. I said, I'm going to meet with so-and-so. And she said, why are you going to meet with them? And I said, well, this. And they're like, well, they're really busy and they're this and this. And can I help you with that? I'm like, totally understand that you're trying to look out for them. They want to meet with me. They want to focus on this. They're pulling me, I'm not pushing on them. And they're like, okay. And I think that a lot of leaders try and protect people from noise and distractions and all that, sometimes at their own
peril.
Yeah, absolutely. Great word.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's what the adaptability, you know, you can't use one size fits all, right? Different contexts require different things. It's just, there's something that I've forgotten his name now, Gunter, he calls himself the Scrum caretaker. And he mentioned something about one of the biggest purposes of all that we're doing is to humanize the workplace. And when I read that, I was like, that's really interesting. Because I remember I told someone something that, you know, as human beings, we're naturally agile. And the guy was like, what do you mean? No, we're not naturally agile. I was like, okay. And I asked the guy, what did you plan to study in school or do as a young boy? I was like, oh, I want to be a doctor. What are you now? Oh, I'm an engineer. Why? I don't like blood. That means you're adapted, right? So it comes to us naturally. But then we're educated to be on your own. You know, you go to school, you have your table, your chair, yours. You do your exam, is yours. So we get taught to be individuals and to compete, which is okay. But then when it then comes to working in a team setting, you have to break that again and go, yeah, it's the team that wins or the team that loses. How do you make that work together? And I just realized that when you look at Scrum and all the frameworks, they're trying to bring that back together. And, you know, because it takes more than one person to deliver value in a complex space. You need feedback, you need collaboration, you need all these things. So I know the funny thing, when you sit down and think about it, it's almost like, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? But when you go into the world of work, you're like, nah, it's not that obvious. So,
right, yeah. So totally agree with you.
In your experience, right? can you give us, I'm just thinking something that the listeners can actually pull at. So can you give us an example of where, obviously not mentioning any names and organizations, obviously we're professionals, but a situation where you work with a particular leader and you're like, okay, you're looking at, you're trying to help this leader be better at what they do to inspire the organization, move the organization forward. They have like I worked with a leader once that he had a particular objective, what he wanted to do, but he was like, Tammy, I'm rubbish at this thing. I know what I want to do, but I have the habit of going to a meeting and almost saying, you guys are all rubbish. And it was like, hey, it doesn't work. What can I do? So if let's say someone is listening right now and they have that same situation, what would you advise them to do? If they consulted with Jim and they're like, Jim, I need help. My leader is like this. Even I've told him he shouldn't do that again. He's done it again. What can those people do? What can that person do or say to that leader to make the person better?
So what's the fundamental issue with your example here? I just want to make sure I understand before I give you my thoughts, because I think I know what you mean, but what do you see as the biggest problem with this leader in this example?
The leader has an objective they wants to achieve through his leadership team, but he's a leader because he's good at his job. But
okay.
It's not. He has found out that he has to walk through people now, and he's realized he's horrible at doing it.
Okay. Yes, I have a number of, I have a ton of examples of this. And this actually is a note that I wrote down based on your prompts. And one of the other kind of aspects of leadership is thinking about how we incentivize people and how we promote people, how we hire people. And many organizations incentivize, promote, and build teams the wrong way to not get what they want. And one of the common patterns is, well, we need somebody to lead this team of authors, so we should hire an amazing author to do that. And that might logically make sense. Or we have this team of civil engineers who are going to do this. They're going to build this new bridge. So we need to go hire the best bridge builder and then ask them to lead this team. And that discounts the act of leadership as a skill in and of itself. And it also tends to put people who maybe want to do the thing really well into a role where they're burdened by administrative overhead and they don't get to do what they love, which means they're not going to be great at it. They're not going to be inspired, motivated, invested as much as they could be. And so I think to make it real and to give you a story about that, there was somebody at a former client just a few years ago who was put in charge of a group of, I don't know, let's say 70 to 80 people. And when I met with him, I said, tell me about yourself. And how did you get here, et cetera, et cetera. And really it was, I just went and did, I just wrapped up this other program that went really well. And as a result of that, I was given this new job, and this new job came with a new title, some new money, a little bit of a relocation and all that. And I said, awesome. Tell me about that thing you just did. And he was very surprised. And he's like, well, why do you want to talk about my last project? I'm like, well, you're in this new situation because of what you just did. So what do you think you learned at that one that's going to help you with this one? And he's like, okay. So once we talked, he started to realize, yeah, that experience didn't prepare me at all for this. And the reason he was good at that other one was not because he was leading 70 or 80 other people to do something. It was because he was doing it alongside of them. And he kind of had a little bit of an oh shit moment to say, I saw this as a great thing where now like I've ascended to this higher position, but now he was realizing he's going to have to learn a lot of new things. He's going to have to deal with a whole bunch of things he didn't know the first thing about. And guess what? All of a sudden it didn't feel like a reward anymore. It felt like a punishment.
Yeah.
And, at that same organization, I had a different leader in that same space who I could not figure out what their strategy was. So finally I had to go to them when I was on a trip overseas, and I was able to sit down with them and say, I'll be honest, I cannot understand why we're doing what we're doing, why we're doing it the way we're doing it, etc. And he said to me, well, there's this other big thing that I can't tell anybody about. So I'm trying to get all this stuff done so that 18 months, 24 months from now, we will be down the road towards this other thing. And I said, so just so I'm clear, you are kind of stealthing in strategic work towards a goal and an initiative that you can't tell anybody about.
Wow.
Yes. And I said, well, no wonder I can't see it. And no wonder it's really weird to people and they're completely demotivated to participate because they don't know why you're asking them to do these weird things. And I said, why can't you tell them? And I expected there to be a really clear reason why. Regulatory compliance, publicly traded company, we can't let, the cat out of the bag or whatever. It'll distract them. I don't think they'll understand. And I don't feel like I'm allowed to tell them.
No way. I wouldn't have seen that.
Right. I didn't expect it either. And I said, well, good news. So what I told this person is good news. Those are all assumptions. And they're very easily addressed. So let's start to go challenge them. And the first one I encouraged him to go challenge is that he wasn't allowed to tell them. Because he said, I don't think my boss and her boss want me to tell them why we're doing this. I said, like in your Elon example.
Yeah.
Who can we get on the phone? Who can we walk over and go talk to find out if that's true or not? And that's what we did. And we found out there were some concerns, but there was no real reason that he couldn't share with his 70 or 80 people why they were doing what they were doing. Yeah. I have a bunch more, but hopefully those two are helpful to somebody. So,
wow. Yeah. I think what I like is, and I think I want our listeners to hear this. One thing I can see, obviously, for you, you're way experienced, so there's a way you take it. But I think what I want our listeners to hear is, number one, your reaction wasn't, oh, are you crazy? What do you mean? It was more like, let's understand what the problem is. Let's rate the problem and see if it's actually really a problem, or like you said, an assumption. And let's knock them down one at a time. Because in the end, you look at it, you're called in to do something with the person. They have a role. So they're doing what they are doing because they think it protects their role. So if you just tell them, oh, leave that and let's do this, they think you're telling them to risk their role. But if you're able to knock down the opposition in front of them, they go, there's actually no risk to me, so it's fine.
Yeah. Well, a very quick example, I was working for a big bank a number of years ago. And one of the things we kept hearing from the teams was, I'm not allowed to test that. And I said, why? And I was talking to development managers, QA managers, everybody that, I would expect to know these. And they're like, we're not allowed to. It's separation of duties. We're not allowed to. Allowed. So finally, we were in a room with the right people months after I began hearing these patterns, and somebody brought up in that room, like, this idea of separation of duties. I'm not allowed to test that because X. And I just asked the question, is there anyone in this room of senior global leadership that knows if we are truly not allowed to do this? And a woman stood up and said, I am the owner of this. I am the one that they are likely blaming. And there is nothing that says people are not allowed to test their own work. And I said, okay. And she said, I think what they feel is this. And it was basically assumptions based on anecdotes, based on maybe some learned and scars built up over being punished. She goes, I can get some communications out and talk to some key people to begin to change this narrative that you're not allowed. There are some regulatory concerns. There are some audit things about this. And we're not just saying that anybody can hit a button on their laptop and push code to production for, $1 trillion or whatever. But to use that as a reason why person A can't test person B's code. It was a fundamental misunderstanding. And it was just a confluence of the right thing coming up in the right conversation with the right person in the room. And that's also the type of thing that you and I can do, because in big companies, even in medium-sized companies, it's very unlikely that any one person is traversing the org chart broad enough to make those connections. But we sometimes are, or we can know who is, and we can put ourselves in those rooms and make those calls and all that. And I think that's the power that people like us have. And if we're just told to like, hey, go help these 5 teams or this department and do the best you can, that's what we look at as local optimization. And it is largely wasteful, because to solve these bigger issues, we've got to step up at least one, if not many levels.
Yeah. Now I know why your LinkedIn says you're a pot stirrer.
Oh yeah, I love stirring the pot.
But you touch on something that's very, very, very. I'm hearing it and I'm seeing it in our space today more than ever before. Al Shalaway said it. Robin Hackshaw said it. Samadi Sugar said it, which is we need to step away from local optimization. We need to see the systemic. We have to see the whole thing. And a lot of times, like you said, they call us in and they go make them agile, but they don't realize that you're only as quick as your slowest system, and a lot of times it's beyond the team. So we can make the team as quick as possible, and if we actually succeed in doing it, then you see gaps in their work because it's not coming as quickly as it should.
Yeah. Well, and I've been working with some very smart coaches recently on a brief engagement. I've largely been doing what's called value stream mapping. And I think that it's not about like one way to begin to move away from local optimization is we do need to help individuals and individual teams, but we also need people who are looking at the overall system and who are trying to gather data, balance things, throw things on a wall, and be able to look and step back and look at it. And the value stream mapping is immensely helpful to find out how work gets done. And I mean how work actually gets done, not how you tell me work gets done.
Exactly.
Because what you like, your smile tells me that there's how we're told work gets done, and then there's how it actually gets done.
Yep. There's a difference.
Yeah. So I have 2 very brief stories that I think are practical advice or words that people might benefit from. One is at one of our clients, and this is a client you and I share, by the way.
Okay.
I wanted to begin to step back with a group of people and look at an overall process. And the leader of that said, Jim, that's a waste of time. We don't need to do that. We just need to get after it. We just need to go begin working. We all agree with this process. We all understand it. We're the experts. And they were very condescending to me. I said, okay, cool. Will you humor me though? Will you give me one hour call with the team to just so I can get up to speed? And we opened up the PDF that was a Visio picture of the process that he had said everyone understands and we're all experts in. And I randomly pointed to one kind of leg of that process. And I said, can you all explain this to me? And the first person started talking. And it was about 2 minutes in, and somebody said, wait, that's not how we do it. Or that's not what I understood. They then spent the next 45 minutes arguing about one tiny box on this thing. And we hung up that call. He said, you got 5 minutes? And I said, I do. He called, he goes, all right, you made your point. I said, I wasn't trying to make a point. I would have loved nothing more if your entire department was all in agreement as to this and I was the odd man out.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I get it. Like, we likely don't understand this well enough. So that's example 1. Example 2, to kind of this, your idea about if we're not focusing on the real problem, it could be wasteful or local optimization is, I was using a very common visual of work flowing in and out of a team.
Yeah.
And a leader said, I'm going to go hire 2 Java developers. And I said, okay, why? Which it's not great for me to form a question with why straight out of the gate. It tends to put people on the defensive, but I did it. And the answer was, well, one of them is a backfill for so-and-so. And because we lost one of those, we need one. And they've been gone for a few months now. And it's taken us that long to get that open rec in through HR. And then also because I feel that we need this. And as soon as he said the word I feel, I'm like, okay. So while we were talking through this, I went into our tool. I opened up about 10,000 items of history that his department had been through, about 15 teams over the course of a couple of years. And I said, do you know that the slowest part of your workflow is not development? It's definitely not job development. It's this other part. And I said, if you actually got more developers, you would be making your problem worse.
Yes.
You would be creating a larger issue at this constraint. So we need to solve this other limiting constraint. And he goes, I had no idea. I feel. And this is another aspect of Agile leadership, is not being beholden to the data, but using data effectively to make decisions, solve problems, all these other things that we're talking about. And really the primary benefit of that was not just hiring people that were going to make the problem worse. It was the time, the delay, the money that was going to be spent and still not solve the problem.
Yeah. Like I always say to people in my training courses that the first reflex is to throw bombs on the seat. It's not always the answer. You need to look at the data properly to see what the problem is and address it. Don't just think, oh yeah, put more people in the team. No. You know, in that particular question, I was telling the person, okay, you have 4 developers, 1 tester. Work is not coming out of the gate quick enough. So you add 2 more developers. The tester is overwhelmed already. You need to look at, is your work in progress too high? Or are you not collaborating? You have to look at what the problem really is and then address it. Don't just think, oh, throw more people at it. Nah, it doesn't always work.
And it's not rocket science to help people see this. We could just ask the question, if we solve this problem, what is that going to create? And if they say, well, let's just assume that we have a magic wand and tomorrow all of our code is delivered extremely fast at high quality. What problem is that going to create? Well, whatever the next step in that process could be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Or it could point to a hole in our CI/CD pipeline, or it could create a tooling. It could create too much change for our customer. I don't know. But when I took a less class from Craig Larman, the class was excellent. But the best part of it was the systems thinking exercises, where we began to take adjectives and nouns and variables and throw them up on a whiteboard and think about the causal relationship between things and the causal loops and these positive and negative effects that would happen from solving a problem differently. And to me, that part of the class made it worth the entire cost of admission and the time investment on my calendar. And it's not hard. There is a art to being able to facilitate those conversations well. Yeah. But it could be as simple as, okay, if we do this, then what's going to happen? And that's something that children can do. I watch when I'm bored sometimes and can't sleep, you'll see these YouTube things of these expansive Rube Goldberg machines or these marble runs. Even kids can say, if this happens, it's going to do this. So I need to solve for that now. And if this happens, it needs to do this. Now, if you apply that to a project or a program that's worth millions of dollars, it can start just this simply.
True. Wow. Okay, so there's one question I usually ask, which is, if you could go back 20 years, if you could enter into the time machine, the TARDIS, whichever one you think about, or get on Marty McFly's DeLorean and fly back 20 years, what would you tell yourself if you saw yourself? I'm not saying bet on the Chicago Bobcats, whatever. No, I'm saying regarding your agile journey.
Oh, wow. 20 years ago was 2004. Trying to think of what advice would current Jim give 2004 Jim. It would probably be something about surrounding myself with innovative people trying to do things that were interesting to me. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not very good, specific, clear advice, but I think what I'm kind of getting at is when people ask me right now, like, Jim, what's your dream job?
Yeah.
My dream job is doing exactly what I do, but on a product that I absolutely love, or in a program that I absolutely love, or something that speaks to me at a more base human level. Okay. And that is the type of thing that would get me to happily overinvest my time, my attention, my learning, and all that, and would feel like just so rewarding. It's not like I'm not one of those people like, oh, I wish I could be an NASCAR driver. I wish I could be an astronaut. No, I love what I do. I love building products. I love this world of modern work. I just wish that, if I hit one of the big lotteries, I would still keep working. I would probably build a company that would go off and solve really interesting products and problems that are interesting to me.
Okay, that's very, very zen, high level, but very powerful. Because, like is what I tell teams sometimes. We have to make the work is already hard enough, so it's an additional thing for you to enjoy what you do. It's a blessing, really, because it's work, but to actually do something that can keep you going and keep you motivated and keep you, keep the juices flowing to say, oh, let's make this better. It's really powerful. So one other question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, what's your other question?
No, go on.
No, I guess the so what of my answer is based on on base of a piece of wisdom my grandfather gave me, which is always have a job.
Yeah.
But never stop looking for your career, like your profession, that thing that it's not work because you love doing it. And my belief that true wealth and freedom is not what I thought it was in 2004. True wealth and freedom is really autonomy. Like if you look at the absolutely wealthy people in the world, they tend to buy two things. They buy space, like physical space, land, privacy, but they also buy autonomy. Elon buys with his money the ability to do whatever crazy thing comes into his head. And only one of those has to be the next big thing that puts millions of people on a different path for it to be worth it. So I think you can get wealthy, you can be comfortable, you can do all that working for other people. But I just know for myself, and maybe this is the tweet level answer to your question, is I would much more sooner go work for myself than I would spend 15 of those years working for other people's dreams.
I'm soaking it in. Yeah, because that's powerful though. Because
if you're building your dream, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, exactly. Because like I said, I was up till 4 a.m. I was cool. I was happy to do it.
Right.
I was doing my own stuff and I was like, yeah, this would change that. This will help with this. This will do this. And, I even spent some time, and I'm not the most graphical person, but I spent some time doing the graphics and all that. And I was like, yeah, 4 a.m. So I see what you mean. Because in the end, because you look at it, it adds to being alive. There's being alive, there's existing. And if it's making your juices flow, you're alive as opposed to existing. Just like we said earlier before we started the podcast, you mentioned something about did you say the rat race? What do you call it? The hamster wheel. I think.
Yeah.
So it takes you out of that, because in the end you look at it, and to be fair, when you look at it, people that are making great strides in this world, they've taken the hamster wheel and thrown it away. and they build their own way to do what they think they should do, and people have jumped on board, and it's become something big.
Yeah, and it's not for everybody. Like one of my very closest friends, he's an entrepreneur, and he is building a next generation product for what I feel are the right reasons, because it truly should make the world a better place. It's going to change people's lives. It's going to have a lot of real benefits, and it should make a lot of money. But I asked him, why do we do it? Like, why do we stay up, like you said, till 4:30 in the morning? Why do we do this? Why do we not? We've achieved enough to go grab the brass ring, go work for somebody else, and relax a little bit. And he believes that people who can have a moral obligation to do so, to build the things and to build the companies and build the products and build the solutions that will truly change things in the future. Now, I don't know if I agree with a moral obligation, but I understand the intent, which is if everybody said that, we'd be nowhere. But I also know that when I sit with my elderly family members and friends who are at the end of their life, none of them are telling me, I wish I went to work more. Exactly. However, you're going to spend, I saw a meme yesterday that said, hope that your boots in your bed are comfortable because you're going to spend 2/3 of your life in them. So working, right? Oh, wow. So we're going to spend 1/3 of our life working, 1/3 of our life sleeping, and 1/3 of our life, hopefully just living and enjoying things. But if you can take a portion of that 1/3 of working and make it comfortable and satisfying and impactful, a portion of us, I think, that makes our life better. And at the end of our life, maybe we don't look back and say, I wish I had done more work. But maybe we can look back and say, I spent the 1/3 of my life the best way I could for a while. Like nobody does it forever. Nobody has their, okay, maybe not nobody, but very few people have their first job that is that life-altering job for them.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that I learned from talking to people who are close to retirement, and a leader told me this about 2 years ago. He said, now that I am about to retire, and his company had this acronym for it. He said, now that I got this date, I can do what I really want to do. And I said, why? He goes, because now there's no guillotine over my head. Now I can lead the way I want to lead. I can make the decisions the way I want to make decisions. I can innovate the way I want to innovate. And they were all positive. Like, it wasn't like he was going to turn into Machiavelli. And I said, wow, how sad is that your company is only getting the benefit of this version of
you at the end,
when you're not afraid of the implications to your career, your personal safety, your ability to provide for your family, etc. Like, if we could have unlocked that 5 years earlier or 20 years earlier, who knows what that person would have been able to do. So I guess all I'm saying is, I doubt that at the end of our lives, any of us are going to want to have work more, but how we spend that 1/3 of our life could make a difference for our families, our friends, and the people around us.
Very true. Very true. So, advice question. You're speaking to people that listen to this podcast. Some are new Scrum Masters that have been there for a while, maybe even new upcoming Agile coaches. What will you tell them, looking at the industry as it exists today, your experience? What will you tell them, hear ye, from the desk of Jim Sammons?
I'd make sure that you really know why you're getting into this industry and why you really want to do this. 5-6 years ago, the data would show you that we were at our peak when it came to demand for people like us versus places for people like us. And I'll be honest, I feel the weight of the Agile industrial complex on my shoulders daily. Not a lot, like, it doesn't crush me, but I feel it. I talk to other coaches and consultants and leaders who feel it. And one of the things I've had to realize is none of it's my fault solely. And I am just trying to do what I can and not contribute to some of the things. But one of the patterns that I see right now is some companies feel like we just need more people turning the screwdriver, banging on the computer, doing the job, right? We need more execution, less planning. And there could be some truth to that. But if you come back to the belief I mentioned earlier, that the people who are good at doing the work are not necessarily good at leading the work, that also means that the people who are good at doing the work are not always good at deciding what work to do and innovating. It means that maybe you're the best drummer in the band, but you're not good at writing music. Like, there's a reason that Paul and John wrote most of the Beatles songs.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that other members of the band couldn't. It just meant, hey, that was their special skill. And, this focus on execution is good, because agility for the sake of agility is pointless. Like, it's got to have an outcome. So we've got to get stuff done. We've got to produce. We have to execute. But I think if you go to watch a football match, if you go to watch a concert, if you go to watch a symphony, what you're seeing is the culmination of very boring things, like agonizing over lyrics and notes, practicing fundamentals, strategizing, watching game tape, watching what your competitors are doing. If you're a roadie, you're assembling the stage that Taylor Swift performs on. I found it very interesting and positive this year that Taylor Swift made such a large donation and mention of the people who enabled her success, because she knew that, she's the face of Taylor Swift. I mean, it's her name. She did not get there alone. It took an army of people at every tour stop and all along the way to create that. And if somebody said, we just need Taylor to show up at Glastonbury and do her thing with none of that other stuff, she's not going to have the career she had. But so to bring this full circle to your question is, if you want to get into this, if you want to improve in this, I think my focus or my advice is, don't be concerned by the new trends, because Lean and TQM and Six Sigma and all these other things had their peak, and then they became persona non grata, but we're still doing all those same things. We're just calling them different names. So there's kind of like this Phoenix thing of, we got to burn it to the ashes and then it rises again. But people helping other people do things, and people strategizing and innovating and leading, is as old as time itself. I mean, you can go back to the Greeks and the Romans and all this stuff. People are always going to need consigliaries. They're always going to need advice. They're always going to need that pragmatic, person on their shoulder to ask them that radically candid question at the right time. But also, don't get into this industry if you think a 2-day class is enough, or if you just want to be selfish and improve things for your own sake. If you're not in it to truly help, execute, create, do, innovate, it's some higher purpose, there's far less stressful, less painful ways of spending your days and weeks than the way that you and I do, Timmy. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, you're correct. You have to really want to do it. And I think I was telling someone, because I do some training on the side, and I was telling someone that you have to be the kind of person that's comfortable being behind someone that is doing well and not feeling like, oh, what about me? You have to be comfortable being that little voice that is improving the team, and the team get the accolades and they don't point at them and they go, oh, it's thanks to our Scrum Master. You have to be that kind of person that you genuinely on your own. It's like, I don't know if you watch superhero movies. You remember Spider-Man when Tony Stark took his costume, and I was like, oh, I'm not Spider-Man without it. Like, if you're not Spider-Man without the costume, then you're not Spider-Man at all. In other words, it has to be you first. It has to be something that resonates with you personally. Right. Then when you come into the role, it becomes something that you can do naturally, because it is, like you rightly said, there's some times where it is tough, where it is frustrating, where you're like, if only you guys could do this, I know what you could get, and then crickets.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a fictional hockey player named Shorzy, and he talks about, it's not about that he loves winning, it's that he hates losing. And I think that's a key thing for people in our industry is, if we're innovating, if we're experimenting, if we are trying to do complex work in an ever evolving and changing world, we are going to make mistakes. We're going to get it wrong. And that's one thing that I think separates the best companies from companies who are trying to replicate the best, is the Pixars of the world, the
Amazons.
The Amazons of the world. They are proud of their failures.
Yeah.
And they have them online, and they don't hold it against people. They understand that you're going to make bets that are not going to pay off. But, we've got to move away from failure as a bad thing, because avoiding failure will help us be safe and consistent. And when we're safe and consistent, it is very easy to just fall in that trap of putting one foot in front of the other. But hating losing more than you like winning is how I summarize your idea of servant leadership. About people like us, we have the stories about how we added millions and millions of dollars to bottom lines, but it's more about what do we create in other people than what we do. But it's also a reason that people like us are regularly very easy to cut from budgets and spreadsheets. And a lot of the pain of that is not felt until some time has passed, and they're like, well, wait, why have all these bad habits crop back up? Or why aren't we doing this? Or why aren't we doing that? It's like, well, you let go the people. I'm not just talking about you and me. I mean, this could be any person or role in any company. Well, maybe you let go of the people that weren't pounding on the keyboards doing the work, but they were doing all those things that maybe don't show up every day.
Yeah.
But enable those people. Like, imagine Gordon Ramsay, right? Very famous chef. If you said, well, I want to pay Gordon Ramsay, so I only have so much money, so I'm going to let go all the sous chefs. I'm going to cut my tooling budget. I'm going to buy crappy equipment. Well, guess what? When he struggles because things aren't prepared and the tools aren't up to par, and he can't produce innovative dishes across 30 restaurants, well, you might only have yourself to blame then.
Yeah, true. Wow. This has been awesome. I've learned, the thing I love about the podcast, and why I started the podcast, is something you said, which is the industry has given us a lot. And I'm very passionate about people that are, because obviously it's grown, but I just thought, let me contribute my bit to ensuring that truth is out there, the real thing is out there. So people can, because some people have assumptions of what this role is about. But if there are people like yourself that are really experienced, have been there for a while, are able to talk to people, then people can actually get to understand that, oh, I want to do this, but listening to what the role is about, I'm not that kind of person. I want to be the guy in front. I want the guy making decisions, and I can go, oh, maybe Scrum Master isn't the thing I should do. Because, so that's why I started the podcast, really. So thank you so very, very much. It's been, wow, I've learned a lot, really. And
me too. Thank you for having me on. And I love talking to people like you, because it makes me organize my thoughts, and I get to hear your experience, and I learn from that. And I'm sure I'll think about it over the next couple of days, and things will come to me. So, I always tell everybody is, if you think you're the smartest person in the room, you need to go find another room. I don't know who said that first, but I repeat it all the time. And that's what this podcast is going to give you. So I'm so excited for you that you've got this new vehicle to talk to people and share and learn from each other. And I bet you're going to be helping a bunch of people along the way.
Thank you very much. So before we leave, now how do our listeners get in touch with you? Do you still you train with Scrum.org, right? You're professional
Correct.
trainer.
Yes.
So how do you get your class schedule? Can you tell us, please?
The best way to find me professionally is on LinkedIn, Jim Sammons. My LinkedIn profile is /James Sammons. I am a professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org, so you can find me on that website as well. And my email address is jim@wiserbees.com.
Okay. Don't worry, I'll put his contact details in the description, so you see his email address, LinkedIn profile link, the Scrum.org page link as well. So don't worry. So hit up Jim, tell him that you've been on the podcast, and he's a phenomenal trainer. He's a phenomenal, as you've heard him, so you can imagine how his classes will be. So yeah, definitely stay tuned.
I appreciate it.
No worries. So to our guests, that wraps up another enlightening episode of the Agile Matrix Podcast with our phenomenal guest, Jim Sammons. We hope you found today's episode and discussion on Agile leadership both insightful and inspiring. And I'm sure you learned a lot like I did, listening to Jim's experience and all, and the conversations we had. He truly is a gem in our Agile community, honestly speaking. So remember, the journey towards Agile excellence is ongoing, and there's always more to learn and discover. And I said in one of the previous podcasts that as an agilist, as a Scrum Master, product owner, you must always stay curious. There are many ways to do what we do. There are better ways to do what we do. So stay learning. So don't miss out on future episodes packed with expert insights, engaging conversations, and actionable strategies to fill your agile journey. Be sure to subscribe to the Agile Matrix Podcast on your favorite podcast platform to stay updated to all our latest releases. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to continue this journey with you. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, keep innovating, keep iterating, and keep embracing the Agile mindset. See you in the next episode. Thank you.